Welcome to the second round of the Reddit Championship Series. We've got a fantastic matchup for you between two undefeated individuals, a stellar feat after a whole single round of gameplay. I am MBT and joined again by Sir Emanon, probably on their channel. How are you doing tonight?
Doing pretty well. Recording a bit later than I normally would, but some complications happened. But here we are, still ready to commentate and watch some very important high-stakes online Yu-Gi-Oh!
Of course. I mean, at this point, since all of Paper Yu-Gi-Oh! Is canceled, this is about the highest stakes we can manage.
Yeah, pretty much.
Two absolutely ridiculous decks here today. One that anyone who's been following the competitive scene for the past couple of weeks is probably very familiar with. I'm speaking, of course, about Eldlich, the control deck that just doesn't quit, resists Lightning Storm, floats to infinity, and generally makes commentating an absolute barbaric experience. And the other, Zoodiac.
Yeah, y'all thought 2017 was bad. Here we are, it's back.
It's Draco all over again.
Yeah, pretty much. It's the second incarnation of the ever so powerful meta deck of like the end of Master Rule 3, beginning of Master Rule 4, making an appearance with, of course, the return of Trident and some new tools to play with in the form of the Infinitrack Link monster, as well as just all the myriad of hand traps that we have at the current metagame.
I wouldn't have expected Trident to be enough to make the deck meta, but obviously they had a reasonable round one, and Megaclops is a heck of a card. So I suppose let's get this show on the road.
Yeah, let's get to it. Alright, so Necros of Winda is going by Royal Tribute, that's his Reddit name, and the other player is the, try to remember who's playing which deck, I can't quite remember, but 0591 I believe is the one on Eldlich, yeah. Okay, so we're going to start off with Zoo going first here.
So Zoodiac and Eldlich are similar in that they don't necessarily have important turn one must-resolve plays. This is a pretty good open from the Zoo player, able to discard the combo off of the Zoodiac Thoroughblade, I'm sure, and then start overlaying for Xyz monsters. But like the Zoodiac turns of old, they're not really attempting to turbo out a turn one Megaclops or any kind of unbeatable board. Just basically make a Trident, a Hammer Kong, and call it a day.
Yeah, I think one of the big differences is obviously because we're not like in a very, very Zeus-centric metagame, the Hammercon board actually isn't quite as powerful because back when Zoo mirrors were like all the rage, you would have to protect against things like obviously opposing Tridents or counters like Forbidden Chalice and Book of Moon. But these are cards that obviously you're not going to see unless if the metagame is predominantly comprised of Zoo, which it currently, of course, isn't. So Trident is going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting alongside, of course, the non-engine defensive cards, which you can see the Desires is there to help get him closer to that sort of layered defense, if you will.
Remember Zoo format? We were playing cards like Shuffle Reborn and My Body as a Shield. Just miserable, terrible cards.
Yep. All right, so here we go. Gonna lead off with a Pot of Desires here. And that gets hit with Ash, so let's see if he lost anything important. He's on one copy of Catarers here.
Oh, they're pretty deep in the pool of Zoos. I don't think I'd be doing that. I believe the only hand that can maneuver into a turn one Megaclops is a hard drawing, or I guess being able to search Zoodiac Rat Pier.
Yeah, Rat does the one card Megaclops, and Thoroughblade pitching Ram also does it. Any way to be able to get Ram out of the graveyard via Shakanine and then popping with Trident. That gets you the play, but I don't really think turn 1 Megaclops is better than just making Trident in most cases.
Oh, not necessarily. I mean, there are actually reasonable cards that out Megaclops pretty easily. With the Automatopoeia monsters running wild, everyone kind of has access to Xyz, so occasionally you do get run over by your opponent's gallant granite secondary targets, but the Eldlich player really lucking out here and finding one of the very few times in which Ash Blossom is going to be meaningful against Zoodiac, a deck that otherwise doesn't really care if its searches get hit.
Yeah, the later the game goes on, the worse and worse this card gets, especially like in the specific Zoodiac matchups. So just getting it this early against an impactful card like Desires is pretty good here, pretty good value. Right, so carrying on, obviously we're going to summon Third Blade, pitching combo, and he draws a copy of Rat, so there's at least follow-up for
So
next turn.
close. He would have done it if he'd drawn Desires.
Crazy. Alright, overlaying for just a 2-material Trident. Set Judgment and pass with Crow in hand.
Wow. This really takes me back. This board looks so unassuming, but anyone who's had to play against Zoodiac knows that this is 100% a nearly unbeatable combination in certain aspects.
Yeah, it is just 3 interruptions, which can definitely get you there, especially because he has like follow-up plays for the next turn. Alright, so let's see what Eldlich can do here.
Thought of Extravagance is going to be a great start.
Alright, so he picks up a Hakero, which is the one that is a DD Crow.
Right, yes. Hakero is the DD Crow. Conquistador is the single target spell and trap destruction. And, oh god, Guardian is the attack defense changer that you play because you need an additional name.
Yeah, it changes attack to 0, I think, if my memory serves.
And notably, they're all level 5, so you can overlay for Zen Mayo.
Yeah, he's actually playing 2 rank 5s. He's playing Constellar Pleiades and Shark Fortress.
If he makes Shark Fortress, I will eat my hat.
Well, hopefully we'll get to see the singular copy of Shark Fortress not be banished off this extravagance and also be summoned later.
Oh, that's dangerous. What if you banish all your Shark Fortresses?
Too good. Oh, that's gonna get met with Judgment here. Interesting.
So one thing that Eldlich has a pretty big problem with is assembling competent boards on hands that don't have access to our big golden friend. This one, unfortunately, seems to be one of those hands. After this Foolish Burial Goods resolves, I think we're likely to see the eventual Eldlich in the graveyard DD Crowed, and then a hand of cards that don't really do anything.
Yeah, just a bunch of reactive cards, but like nothing to actually progress his game state. So negating that Extravagance Blind is pretty big here, actually, just given the hand.
It's a little suspect, but it's really paid off for this opener.
Right, so Goods is gonna send the Guardian, which can obviously be banished to set any Elixir spell or trap.
Right. The target for this is Elixir of the Scarlet Sanguine, which can get the Eldlich boy from the deck. I think pre-end phase you probably DD Crow the Guardian of the Golden Land in order to prevent that. But looks like Necros of Winda just deciding, he probably has another Scarlet Sanguine in these 3 set cards. No reason to specifically waste interaction on it.
Yeah, and also like these cards are still relatively new, so maybe he might not have realized that you have to like use its effect in the end phase specifically. So
it's a little hard to navigate. Like Scarlet Sanguine, for example, doesn't have to use its effect in the end phase, so it can be easy to screw him up.
Yeah, it's the Golden Land ones that specifically have to be activated in the end phase. Alright, so picking up a Whiptail here, more zoo names isn't like particularly great, but at least it'll allow him to apply pressure, especially given the fact that his opponent doesn't really have a whole lot going on here.
Whiptail's potentially quite good if you're able to banish an Eldlich, but it seems pretty far off, honestly.
Alright, so normal summoning Rat here, going to go ahead and send a copy of Ram, so he might try and go for the Megaclops play here. We'll see what he ends up going for.
This one's hard. Not activating Scarlet Sanguine in the standby phase telegraphs that you don't have a copy of Golden Land forever, so you won't be able to Solemn Judgment any of your opponent's plays. With the Hakero set, he's trying to hold it until his opponent overlays for a copy of Chakanine, then will use Hakero as Chainlink 1 and Scarlet Sanguine as Chainlink 2, so he can banish with his opponent having no knowledge of what he's up to. I think that's likely to be the play that we see if Chakanine makes it out onto the field. And I hope that he has a response to the Trident if that occurs.
Indeed, yeah. Especially, it's pretty... it's relatively telegraphed, given the fact that he sent the Ram that he's going to try and make a play with Chakanine later down the line this turn. So that's probably what we're going to end up seeing. He might have to use the Imperm on the Trident if that's the case.
Not the end of the world.
Right, so
All right, so
Shakanine,
here's the Chalk 9.
here we go. Yep,
Just thinking
showing
about it.
2
Yep, Hokkaido
Hakero.
Chain Link 1. And Necros of Winda thinking real quick. If you pop the Hakero in response, it won't be able to banish. But if you fail to pop it, then the whole thing resolves as a single activation. The summon and the banish. It's all one.
Correct. It's not like it's a separate chain or anything. Alright, so he's going
Ooh,
to
and
activate.
letting it resolve, does he have another Hawk?
His back row is Imperm, Judgment, and the Scarlet Sanguine.
It's interesting, deciding that the Imperm isn't worth using on the Trident here. I don't know about that. I mean, a chance to get Eldlich on board and plus at the same time seems pretty choice. And, man, I can't imagine giving it up here.
He might just be thinking that, you know, Tribute's going to just commit into an Infinitrack Link monster play, which he does have the Judgment for, so he's probably just banking on the fact that he could, like, you know, just get his opponent to use all of his resources and then activate Scarlet Sanguine to get his engine online later.
It could also be just a general fear of Whiptail, right? Like, if you have an infinite impermanence, you maybe want to keep it for your opponent's ability to banish the card that you absolutely must have in your graveyard at all times. But with access to 2 Xyz monsters, that seems unlikely. You could easily bluff by walking in with 1, and then if you shotgun the infinite impermanence, you can go for the second.
Right. So we'll see what ends up happening here, because the Shakanine does resolve, and he is... So he's not able to actually use the Trident to pop the Ram here, and because the Ram was brought back off the Shakanine, it can't be used as a Xyz material, so he actually can't, I believe, go for the Infinitrack play this turn.
I'm trying to think of a way. You would have to use Chakanine to bring back Borbo, right?
Well, he already used Shakanine, right, to bring back the Ram?
Right, I mean, you would have had to have used
Oh, yeah, that's correct, yes. But he did target the Ram, thinking that he would be able to pop it with Trident, so... looks like we're just going to attack with it, or with the Trident. And equipping Whiptail just for the extra damage here, so... now it's pretty well known exactly like what the threats are.
Whole thing's telegraphed now. I think we're probably going to see, Tiger Mortar, maybe switching around some material. I don't think we have anything too exciting in the graveyard yet, just a copy of Borbo under this Trident. And I think probably either followed up with a Hammer Kong or, wow, just a pass out of the opponent.
Yeah. So
we got to be activating Sanguine at end step here.
Yeah, just trying to stack up this Trident as much as he can, and hoping that the DD Crow will be able to get him there later on. Alright, so end phase, yep, we're going to see the Scarlet Sanguine, bringing out the Golden Boy.
And then the Hakero in graveyard as well will probably be at the end phase of the next turn.
Yes.
Of course, Scarlet Sanguine can be activated at any point, getting any of the Golden Land cards from your deck. Usually the targets are Forever or Conquistador at this point in the game.
Alright, so picking up another copy of Impermanence, not really that great here. Alright, so shotgunning the Trident in standby phase.
Oh, that's terrible. I don't even know if you activate the Infinite Impermanence here. I think you're pretty happy to get the Golden Lord that can't be destroyed by your opponent's card effects if it goes to the graveyard, just destroying your own set spells and traps. You could, for example, banish the Scarlet Sanguine for a Conquistador, then send the Conquistador, get the Eldlich onto the field. He's 3,500 attack and unaffected, and then at end step, banish the pair of them for a couple of sweet Eldlixirs. I mean, this seems like a real miscalculation.
Yeah, because he's going to get a lot more value. Oh, but he's going to actually Impermanence the Trident here. Interesting.
Right, I mean, onus is on the Eldlich player here. Whatever they think is going to be more powerful, it's obviously up to them. But yeah, now realizing it looks like in chat that he could have just easily let that resolve.
Yeah, because it actually would have been better for him to let it die in that case, just because he already had like the grave set up for him to be able to like continually just fuel his engine.
For what it's worth, he doesn't know, but keeping this monster out of the graveyard is the way that he wins against DD Crow. So maybe he was next leveling the card in his opponent's hand.
And the good news, at least, is that this Impermanence is going to turn off that Whiptail, so he won't have to actually deal with that. So pretty effective way to get rid of that, at least for the time being. Granted, of course, Shakanine and Tiger Mortar just recycles the engine. And now that combo is set up with 5 monsters, he could also just put back the Dryden if he wanted to.
Almost more important than the Dryden unban for this deck was the Pot of Avarice unlimit.
Yeah, that card
This
is
is
really
the
crazy.
Yeah, just the most powerful shell in the game for the card, and boy, every time I've seen it, it is really overperformed.
It reminds me of how like the OCG was using Avarice in like Sky Striker, but here it seems like really potent just because like Dryden being able to be like so easily recurable through like tribal Avarice plus actual Avarice is like it gives the deck a lot more recursion than it already would have, even with like Shakanine and Tiger Mortar. So there's like just so many ways to get the Dryden back into circulation after it's used.
You've not lived until you go for the Avarice, your opponent DD Crows your Dryden, and you chain combo, putting the Dryden back.
So much value. All right, so end phase we are going to use the Scarlet Sanguine Engrave, as well as Hakero.
So I think likely we're going to see either Forever or the Conquistador here. Looks like we are going for the Forever, along with the second copy of Scarlet Sanguine. This is off of the Hakero. So now we can easily go into Eldlich number 2. We can negate stuff with Eldlich number 1, and we can threaten lethal with the pair of them by way of Gustav Max at any point over the next couple of turns.
Yes, and it is worth noting for those of you guys who are wondering, this is a pure Eldritch build, so no like zombie hybrid or anything. This is like very pure Eldritch.
The different variants of Eldlich that we've seen kind of emerge over the last week have been just stellar.
There's a lot of them.
I know Jason Leonard was on and Pack were on Invoked Eldlich, which has been really amazing. I know I've seen Mayakashi Eldlich, which was shockingly playable for how miserable the Mayakashi engine is. But sometimes it's best to just stick with heads up pure builds.
Yeah, this just seems to maximize on like the control elements of like just having like extra hand traps or things like Imperm, Judgment, all those types of cards.
They're paying off now.
Alright, so we are going to also end phase combo, so all the recyclability in both decks coming in. And he'll pick up a Call by the Grave, which is also going to be pretty good here.
Those are two sweet cards.
Yeah, very good. So now he can use his Crow on... Like, he can use it more flexibly. He doesn't have to reserve it specifically for Eldritch.
And I mean, so... You've got to find a way to get the Eldritch into the graveyard now. That's kind of hard. It's got a ton of attack. It is thankfully not yet invincible in terms of being affected by other artifacts. We could maybe make a Trident. We could make Tiger Mortar on the way to reattach the Whiptail. If we're not too picky about the monster we're sending, we can easily sack one of those off in order to banish it. But you are going to have to commit to something, and there's a Solemn Judgment and a Forever waiting in the wings.
And an Imperm, so there's a lot of defense here. Alright, so main phase going to Shakanine. Alright, Shakanine's going to bring back the Ram.
Right?
Right, that gets it.
We are going for the impermanence here.
Probably just preventing a bigger field from being established. I think the Judgment here is going to be reserved probably for Trident because he already committed Shakanine.
One thing that Zoodiac kind of struggles with in a world without 3 Rad, of course, is that it's actually not super easy for the deck to find its normal summonable monsters. Routinely, you do just run out of guys in hand. You can see all we've got that we could potentially normal summon is like a Veiler. There's no way to just like slam down a Thoroughblade and get for that third Xyz to threaten a Megaclops play, for example.
Yeah, and that's why Broad Bull is probably never gonna actually come back into the game because like just the repeatability of the engine is what made Zeus so strong.
Goodness for that.
Alright, so Tiger will attach Whip to itself.
Okay, so there's one way to out Golden Man.
Right.
And I think we're probably going to see a Trident as well. Nope.
Huh, interesting. So just direct attacking with Borbo.
Oh, can't imagine that's the play. All right, so we're going for Trident here, but with the Golden Land Forever, it certainly seems like uh, this Eldlich is going to be able to overlay even with known information and quantities. You know, you don't even have to reveal the Solemn Judgment in order to win the game against your opponent by going into Gustav Max here.
Well, looks like Judgment on Dryden will be the play. And ouch, not even setting Call by the Grave. So Gustav Max will just straight up win the game here.
Yeah, all we got to do is activate the Scarlet Sanguine at end phase. We're going to go ahead and get Eldlich. And I mean, God, there's just a multitude of ways you can win from this position. It just seems like if he'd been able to DD Crow or Called by the Grave either of these Eldliches by putting them into the graveyard with better use of his Zoodiac effects, we might be playing a different game. But instead, we are going to see a concession.
Yeah, he actually, in fact, still had a copy of the Gustav Max in his extra deck because he does play two. So even off the Extravagance, he only banished one copy. So definitely just overlaying would have done it, especially because he set the effect failure. So definitely no response to that.
All right, and wow, this is a hand. Cursed Eldland, just an absolutely incredible card. A lot of people liken it to Cleafort Scout, probably just because the 800 life point payment. It allows you to get any Eldritch monster or Golden Land spell and trap. You usually get the Lord himself, and then you're able to get rid of the Eldland on your side of the field to summon it from the graveyard to the hand, back to the field, plussing in the process because, of course, it sends an Eldlich or Golden Land spell or trap from your deck to the graveyard when that happens. And then, we found Tanky on the other side. Great.
Yeah, so a lot of consistency, a lot of draw power here, and notably for Cursed Eldland, unlike the other archetypal spells and traps, you can actually use both of its effects in the same turn, whereas the other cards, obviously, you can only use one of the effects per turn and only once that turn. So this card is just really, really like the best starter in the entire deck for sure.
Oh yeah, it's bonkers.
Alright, so Tenki's gonna grab the rat this time.
Where are we gonna see it?
Alright, upstart for a ram, so we're drawing all of our zoo cards.
Sheesh. It's probably Thoroughblade discard ram as the play here, even if you're attempting to go for the Mega Clops.
Just trying to fish. Ooh, Cosmic is a very, very strong pickup here. Very, very good.
One of the frustrating things about Eldland is it's a control deck that kind of resists Twin Twisters, and so a lot of people are pivoting back on a Cosmic in sideboards, and I gotta admit, it sounds really good against the archetype that pluses when their spells and traps go to the graveyard.
Yeah, very, very critical here, because especially because like it's going to be like the only real proactive card that he can actually utilize on his own turn. He does have Scarlet Sanguine as a backup, but like slowing down the pace of the game is gonna be very beneficial, especially if you can pick up something really good with Desires here. Which of course he's going to fire off right now.
DD Crow in hand from the Eldland player is super heads up. I like that DD Crow is kind of becoming the second or third best hand trap right now.
Yeah, it's just like really, it's kind of similar to Ash in the fact that like it's never going to win the game by itself, but it just has application in so many different matchups. Like even the control matchups, it has pretty good usage against. So I really like the card right now, and Judgment being picked up here as well is pretty good for Zoo.
All right, so Chakanine time. Let's bring back the Ram. Then I think we'll see an overlay to Trident. Yep, destroying the Ram.
Oh, but Crow is going to stop whatever Ram targets. So that's going to banish the Shakanine here. Which definitely is interesting that he didn't commit something like a Borbo as an overlay material, because now his Trident's just off.
Yeah, that's really frustrating. And you can't come back from it. You can only summon each of the Zoodiac individuals once per turn, I believe. Only by their secondary effect. You can overlay as much as you want, but this is a 5-mat.
You can like hard summon Shakanine, but like not with this kind of hand.
That's rough as heck. Oh, whoa! Oh my god.
Oh yeah, so he is siding into a bit of a Shadal package here for going second.
Hey, this deck is pure, and then on the draw, they'll side into Shadal. Come on. Oh man.
So yeah, we see obviously 3 Shuttle Fusion, and he has not only Beast, but he also is playing a copy of Ariel, which is pretty interesting. It's like another DD Crow,
Yeah.
Mega DD
Oh,
Crow,
really going in
obviously.
on DD Crows, huh?
Yeah, really really liking the card. He's main decking 3 of it, or like just main decking 3 Crow. So
I will say I do appreciate that that's less expansive Shadal engine that we've seen in previous matches. Um, but boarding into it, boy, would Shadal Fusion really do a lot of work on this board.
yeah, unfortunate that he didn't draw the 3 of and drew the 1 of instead, but you
For my
know,
life.
happens. All right, Eldlich is going to get met with the Cosmic here. Not terribly surprising.
And if you Solemn Judgment the Elixir of Scarlet Sanguine, that's kind of the end of the game.
Yeah, I don't really foresee how 0591's gonna get his engine started, given how many zoo cards that Tribute has, like, just to play with. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Rat can go ahead and send something like Combo, just to recycle the engine.
And that is the send.
Right, and then
And let's try
Shakanai.
this exact same play one more time.
Yep. Oh, so he's going to
Activating
activate.
them in chain like that leaves you open to Solemn Judgment. It's cute, but you can't do it into set cards.
Yeah, so all he's really gonna get is just a trap monster.
That literally has no effect. Past turn 1, if you expect your opponent is holding a Solemn Judgment, you kind of have to go for the Sanguine first, and then at resolution go for the Conquistador. You don't get nearly the same, surprise factor or like cute chainery, but it prevents scenarios like this where you are left with a vanilla on your side of the field and no hope of activating Conquistador until the end phase of your next turn.
Yeah, and especially in something like a game 2 scenario where, like, if you ever see your opponent activating like one of the trap monsters just randomly, it very much telegraphs that they have a Scarlet Sanguine set. So, like, it wasn't too difficult to just hold the judgment for like the actual threat.
Mm.
All right, so Tiger Mortar coming down here. Attaching Thoroughblade to Dryden. He doesn't have Whiptail access, but that's not that big of a deal given that there's no Eldritch to deal with right now.
All right, will he do it? Oh, he's going for the Ram play.
Yep, so Ram bring back Shakanine, and here he comes.
Boom.
And
There's the
critically,
boy.
he can take control of this Conquistador, which will prevent it from going to grave as well. So,
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah, very, very, very huge play here. I do believe that Megaclops's effect causes the damage to be taken to be halved, I think.
It does.
Yeah.
We'll see if they catch it.
They do. Okay.
I would have liked to have seen a DD Crow in the second main phase here, just because Scarlet Sanguine can't activate both effects in the same turn. Now, it banishes for cost, and it's able to be accessed at any point during 0591's next play.
Indeed. I wonder what the motivation behind being very conservative with Crow is. And, oh god! Oh goodness. Well, they really do be like that sometimes.
So, they say it don't be like that, but sometimes it do. Oh man. I guess he's holding Crow exclusively for Eldland, and I can respect that. But I certainly think you have to be a little more heads up, especially when you're trying to close the game immediately with the Megaclops. Identifying who's the attacker and who's the defender in each given matchup is important, and probably the deck with like 45 trap cards is going to be on the defense almost all game.
Yeah, especially as given how the game state has gone, right? Like your opponent
Right.
is on very, very few resources, and like you can just tell, but based on like the pace of the game, that Zoo's going to be on the offensive here. So I
course,
think,
we
especially
have the
because he has
privilege-
2 Crow, like you might as well just use it in
Yeah.
main phase.
We have the privilege of operating with perfect information, of course, but like even if you're not seeing the Shadal summons and you don't put them on like Ariel Beast in hand, which makes sense because why would you? You have to assume that the cards in hand are like hand traps or reactive things that aren't going to go very far in resolving the Megaclops on board.
All right, so 0591 just scoops it up there because he didn't really have a very, very good win condition at that point. So here we are, game 3. And I believe this is the first game where Eldritch is going first.
Yeah,
So we'll get
one thing
to.
that frustrates me about Eldlich is it actually doesn't care a whole lot about going first or second. Obviously, it wants to resolve the effect of Cursed Eldland, which is much easier on the play. But if you draw into Lord itself, it can destroy your opponent's cards on the way to the graveyard. So it does a fantastic job at clearing out board states before trying to resolve spells and traps. This hand has everything. I mean, it's got the Black Elixir, which can get Eldlich from deck, no hassle. It's got Eldland. It's got a Solemn, the good Trap Monster, and the good Elixir as well. I mean, this is, you could not craft a better hand than this one.
Yeah, this has like infinite ways for him to just keep getting his engine like rolling here. So not even the Ash is going to be enough, honestly.
I think we're going to see it immediately, yeah. And he says, well, don't worry, I have an Elixir Black Awakening too.
Alrighty. So we're going to go ahead and set 3. And just not having to fear something like Lightning Storm is just like super, super insane.
I wonder if they're going to be blind Cosmicing. Probably not. You want to save it for like the trap monsters potentially. But ooh, it's super alluring into 4 unknowns.
Alright, so Pankratops is coming down here. And notably, like, this hand kind of just has to get him there because he doesn't really have any longevity. Like, he has a singular zoo monster.
Thanks.
So
Rod Bull would have done it.
yeah. Alrighty. So we're gonna go normal Third Blade next. Alright, go Borbo, Trident. And then Judgment on the Trident. So there goes his engine. So even if Tribute's able to clear the board here, like he doesn't have his engine anymore.
This is just so annoying. Like, oh, Pankratops feels terrible in this matchup. What are you going to do? Pop Eldlich, allow them to plus by sending Eldland to the graveyard after searching next turn? It looks like he is blind Cosmicing. Is he going for the set cards? That seems really dangerous. No, the cursed Eldland. Okay, a little more defensible at least.
Yeah, I think this is fine given that, like the Pankratops again is just, it doesn't feel very, very good in this particular state of the game. Especially just given how like...
Set the Cosmic! No!
Oh boy. So... Oh, he is...
Oh,
Ooh.
that's why he wasn't, I suppose.
So yeah, he had the read, I guess.
I don't know about that one. That's like cool and shows that you have the read, but not actually that necessary to make sure the Conquistador gets banished. The Elixir of Scarlet Sanguine is the must resolve, and Cosmic Cyclone isn't going to be able to do anything about it. I think I would have preferred holding the Cosmic Cyclone for whatever whatever's going to be searched next turn.
All right, so here we are with a very simplified game state, actually.
Yep. For what it's worth, Pankratops one of these monsters down and then banish it from the graveyard is not terrible.
Just overlaying straight up
to
Gustav Max. All right.
This is like the only way you lose the game. Why would you do this? He's like, my huge recursive bosses. I'll make Gustav Max, and then obviously they both go to the graveyard.
All right. Well, at the very least, he still has a reasonable amount of follow up here.
Right. So Black Elixir can get, it looks like Guardian here, and Sanguine Elixir can get something like a Conquistador as well. He's going to try and send it to the graveyard for Lord, and he says, well, I will call by your Lord. Good luck.
All right, Scarlet Sanguine going to come down next to go ahead and set Conquistador.
And with no way to return the Lord from the graveyard, the Scarlet Sanguine he ripped off the top seems pretty choice in terms of top decks.
Yeah, it kind of is like... It kind of worked out given the circumstances, because like overlaying into that Gustav Max into Pankratops was like super
so high risk,
super risky. Yeah, but I guess maybe he did it because he top decked Scarlet Sanguine, perhaps, and was maybe just trying to get rid of the Pankratops, just like force it.
What's the out here? Rat potentially.
Ooh, well, he at least drew a zoo monster, but not sure if it's too little, too late.
Yeah, I was going to say Ram's kind of cool because if Conquistador pops it, you get to get one of your monsters from the graveyard back. But it's not very cool because 400 is not a meaningful clock.
Yeah, and I mean, Like just leaving it on the board just seems it just feels so bad. Um,
Yeah. And as soon as Chalk's out, I think we'll likely see the activation of Conquistador. Yeah, followed by the Scarlet Sanguine, so you get Eldlich out. Yikes.
yeah, and I feel like
Wait,
this
hold up.
game is pretty much wrapped up here.
Mouse over. Hold up. Give me 1 second here. Have I forgotten how all the Zoodiacs work?
Um,
1 second. I promise if this works out, I'm going to sound like the smartest person. Yeah, wait a minute. With Ram Ram under it, if your opponent activates a trap card that targets it, you can negate the activation. Oh my god.
I don't think
Conquistador
it doesn't target. It doesn't target. Yeah.
Oh, why are
Yikes.
these cards so good?
Yeah, rip Ram Ram. I think the only thing it would protect against is impermanence in this matchup. So
That's upsetting. Well, pretty definitive game. I'm shocked the Zoodiac player was able to get a game off. It really just looks like two control decks trying to hit each other, and one of them is just so much more rebuildable, so much more robust, and so able to come back from playing at parity.
yeah,
We got to a point. Yeah,
like when this archetype came out, I very, very much underestimated its power. But
same.
this deck is everywhere on Dueling Book Ladder right now. So
Yeah, no, it's a miserable experience trying the ladder right now. Because even when they win, it takes like 40 to 50 minutes.
yeah, it's just like new age. I don't even know how to describe it because it's not really comparable to a lot of other control decks, but it floats as much as something like I don't know, almost like Draco in a sense. But instead of like
Mm.
popping your opponent's stuff, you just get more resources.
It almost feels like Konami like printed Lightning Storm and then said, "Okay, this is actually going to destroy every control deck from now until the end of time. We have to make a control deck that can play through it." They arrived at this and then forgot to put any meaningful weaknesses in the archetype. And here we have people citing 3 prohibition in order to try and make their way out of it.
Yeah, we live in a very crazy timeline right now, but that's gonna do it for round two, guys. And that will be Eldlich taking it 2-1 against Zoodiacs. So, any final words?
Oh, stay tuned for the third round. I hope we will have some more interesting games for you. Maybe a couple that don't involve slow as molasses control decks. Adamancipator on the rise. Very possible that we see it in the next round.